Here's your wrestling news for September 27th, 2021. And your headlines for today include Vince McMahon willing to work with controversial ex-WWE wrestler. I was ready to strangle Vince McMahon. Seth Rollins recalls his furious reaction after controversial WWE match. Bray Wyatt reacts. 2 major botches during WWE Extreme Rules 2021. Becky Lynch yells and confronts a young fan from the crowd. Bianca Belair reveals how incredibly late she heard about Becky Lynch's SummerSlam return. Danielson opens up about working for WWE Creative. WWE President Nick Khan becoming a fixture backstage. Vince McMahon asked CM Punk not to mention Kevin Dunn during Pipe Bomb promo and why he wore Stone Cold Steve Austin's t-shirt, and more. We are starting with NXT 2.0, as Braun Breaker has been a standout star of the revamped show ever since his debut, but his name has been a sore spot for many fans. The son of Rick Steiner and nephew to Scott, many fans have been wanting WWE to use the Steiner name, but that won't be happening, with the commentary team reportedly banned from mentioning his family lineage. Some have argued that this is because of bad blood between WWE and Scott Steiner, but sources have confirmed that this isn't the case, saying, WrestlingNews.co asked a WWE source about this, and we were told that Vince McMahon has no issue with Scott Steiner. As far as why Scott has yet to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, it's because Scott has said on multiple occasions that he doesn't want to get inducted. The source reiterated that Vince McMahon doesn't have the same issues that he did with Bruno Sammartino in The Ultimate Warrior, so if Scott wants to talk, then Vince will likely listen. The reason why Scott Steiner isn't in the WWE Hall of Fame is because Steiner doesn't want to be, as he's rejected a Legends deal by the company in the past. When Steiner was asked about a Hall of Fame induction last year, the former WCW World Champion rejected the idea, saying, "First off, where in the fuck is the Hall of Fame? How can you be in the Hall of Fame if it doesn't exist? It exists in Vince's mind. Do I give a fuck if I rent space in Vince's mind? No, I don't give a fuck what he thinks. So I don't care if I'm in the Hall of Fame because it's a fucking joke because it doesn't exist." Steiner has also had very harsh words for Stephanie McMahon and Triple H, calling the pair the 2 biggest douchebags around. As for Braun Breaker, his name has been changed because WWE wanted a name they can solely own, and despite some harsh words by Scott Steiner, Vince McMahon has no problems with the former superstar. Throughout his career, Seth Rollins has had plenty of tough opponents, but perhaps none were tougher than The Fiend at Hell in a Cell 2019. Their Cell match is infamous for its ending, in which Rollins attacked The Fiend to the point of referee stoppage, but many fans believed it was a disqualification during a no DQ match. The fan backlash at the time was huge, with many fans canceling their WWE Network subscriptions, and this led to some major drama behind the scenes. Speaking on the Broken Skull sessions, Rollins admitted that he was furious at the time and was ready to let out his anger at the chairman of the company. "I came through that curtain and I was ready to strangle Vince McMahon. I'm not kidding you, I'm not kidding you. Tyson Kidd, TJ Wilson, WWE producer, was there to hold me back. Dude, I stared right into Vince's eyes. You know where he sits in that chair over there backstage? I looked at him, he looked at me, we didn't say a single word to each other, and he walked out." Wyatt would go on to win the Universal title a month later at Crown Jewel in 2019, and in a tweet, referenced Rollins' comments about wanting to strangle the chairman after the disastrous match, saying, "Wait until you hear my reaction." Their heavily criticized match is considered to be one of the worst WWE main events in recent years, and although Rollins has said he's since been able to put a positive spin on it now, things were very tense in October 2019. Extreme Rules now, as Alexa Bliss had a homecoming to her native Columbus, Ohio last night, as she was thoroughly buried during her Raw Women's title match to champion Charlotte Flair. Even before the bell rang, things weren't going well for her, as during Bliss's entrance, Peacock cut to an Xfinity commercial for a majority of fans watching the broadcast. They only aired one commercial, but it was enough to frustrate a lot of fans, especially as Bliss is one of the most visually interesting superstars WWE has on its roster. Extreme Rules 2021 is a night Bliss will definitely want to forget, as her failing to regain the Raw Women's title was the least of her problems during the show. Cutting to a commercial during Bliss's entrance was certainly an embarrassing botch for the production crew, but it wasn't the only technical fault at Extreme Rules. Before the show began, Michael Cole and Pat McAfee were calling the kickoff match between Liv Morgan and Carmella, but then the Spanish language feed bled into the English commentary. It happened multiple times throughout the match and caused a lot of confusion for fans who were watching. Thankfully, this problem was fixed shortly after the start of the main card, but this all led to a rough watch for any non-bilingual fans who tuned into the kickoff show. Since returning to WWE last month, Becky Lynch has done all she can to establish herself as a heel, and this is the case both on and off television. During a dark match at last week's SmackDown, Lynch faced off against Bianca Belair, but the man had a different person in mind after the bell. Post-match, Lynch yelled at a young fan in the crowd who had whipped the champ with Belair's hair. It's impossible to make out what Lynch was saying in the video shared on social media, but the Irish superstar was clearly unhappy with being whipped by the fan. At Extreme Rules, Lynch lost by disqualification, meaning she keeps her title, thanks to the return and interference of Sasha Banks. And with the issues between the man and the EST far from over, Lynch will have to keep an eye out for any more fans like the one she confronted last Friday. Lynch stepped away from WWE TV in May 2020 because of her pregnancy and gave birth to her daughter Rue last December. The SmackDown Women's Champion has always maintained an impressive physique long before she became a mother, and she had to work extra hard after giving birth. Sitting down with Muscle and Fitness, the man explained how she's no longer self-conscious about her body after giving birth, saying, "I appreciate my body more. I go, well, you know what? I've created a life. This is great. This is great. I don't really care how it looks anymore. I was always self-conscious about showing my stomach off, and now I'm just real proud of the function of it, of everything it can do." Returning to TV after over a year away at SummerSlam, Lynch looked fantastic on her first night back and will continue to impress as both a wrestler and a mother from now on. Lynch's return at SummerSlam came at the expense of Bianca Belair, who had originally planned on facing Sasha Banks. Not only did Belair lose the title to Lynch, but she lost the impromptu match in seconds, a decision that angered fans who got invested in the EST of WWE. Speaking to Inside the Ropes, Belair explained how last-minute the match with Lynch was, as she said, "It was pretty much very last minute. Pretty much when I was in the ring, up until that time when I went out to the ring. Very late call, very late moment, everything. All the emotions that you saw in my face during the match at SummerSlam were real emotions. Shock, kind of just like, wow, this is happening. Okay, let's go with it and just be great at what you do." So it was a very last-minute call. The Belair vs. Lynch SummerSlam match only happened because Sasha Banks couldn't compete due to unforeseen circumstances, and that culminated in some very real emotions by the EST in the ring. Before leaving WWE earlier this year, Bryan Danielson was one of the company's most popular wrestlers, but he wasn't just an on-screen talent. Behind the scenes, Danielson was once part of WWE's creative team before making the choice to wrestle for AEW. And now the former world champion has revealed all about his work backstage. In an interview with Jimmy Trina on the Sports Illustrated Media podcast, Bryan talked about his work with WWE Creative, saying, "I like working with writers. I like collaborating. I had a really good time with that. One of my favorite times was when I was the Planet's champion. The writer I worked with was named Robert. We had so much fun. He would present me with a piece of paper. I had a lot more leeway than a lot of people in WWE. I would work with the writer and say, what if we say this? Robert was great because he would pull me back from the edge. Sometimes I'd go off on a tangent and he would say, hey, this is too far environmental and maybe not focused enough on the show we're actually doing. Robert helped me stay on track. Eventually, I wasn't allowed to say anything about the environment at all, but Robert was great because he would throw in little things there. I loved collaborating with the writers. There's a real fear of the blank page. You have to craft your own story. You want that freedom, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, here's this blank page, you can create whatever you want, and you're like, and that's a little bit nerve-wracking. Danielson's time as the Planet's champion was one of his most entertaining characters, as fans never expected him to turn heel in late 2018 after years as the company's most beloved babyface. Unlike most AEW stars, Bryan has avoided burying WWE and has instead praised the company and Vince McMahon for what they did for his career. And we'll have to see what's next for the man many believe will be the next AEW World Champion. Now, Nick Khan is WWE's president and has been a controversial figure since taking the role on last year. Khan has been responsible for several recent layoffs of talent and has said he likes to take the blame for these matters, and the WWE president is becoming a common sight backstage. Ringside News has learned that Khan was backstage last week at SmackDown in Philadelphia, and not only that, he's been at a lot of TV tapings as of late. A tenured member of WWE said that Khan isn't a rare occurrence backstage, despite his position as the company's president being more of an office role. Khan will often travel with Vince McMahon, but it's unclear if he was there for any specific work regarding the Blue brand, as Fox have been reportedly unhappy with WWE as of late. Nicknamed the Terminator for his history of releasing superstars, it's no doubt daunting for the roster to see Khan walking around at tapings, but this has been an all-too-familiar sight as of late. And we're ending today with CM Punk, who cut his most infamous promo during the June 27, 2011 Raw, which would go on to be known as his first pipe bomb. In the promo, Punk didn't hold back, saying that WWE will be better after Vince McMahon's dead, and referred to Stephanie McMahon and Triple H, the heirs to Vince's entertainment empire, as his idiotic daughter and doofus son-in-law. Punk had some harsh words for WWE at the time, but not everything made it into the infamous worked shoot, as he revealed during a recent appearance on the Dropping Character podcast. Vince McMahon was like, "Write some stuff down and let me approve it." And I'm not gonna name names, but I got with some people who were writers, and I started talking about things I wanted to say, and they said, "Oh, he's not approving any of this. He's not gonna want you to mention Brock," because Brock Lesnar was gone and they had a tumultuous relationship with lawsuits and stuff that I would soon experience myself. So in my mind, what I did was I immediately just shut down and I went with the flow and I let them write stuff down and hand it to Vince, and Vince went, "Okay, this looks good." He gave a couple of notes, some of which I used. One was, "Don't mention Kevin Dunn, who is the guy in the production truck. Don't mention somebody else." Okay, and then I went out and said whatever the I wanted. In the end, Punk didn't mention Kevin Dunn, who over a decade later is still considered a Vince McMahon yes man, and it shows just how protective the chairman is of Dunn. The former WWE champion also explained his apparel on that fateful night, saying his Stone Cold shirt wasn't a nod to the rattlesnake or an homage to the man who cut similar scathing promos, but because it was the first shirt he found in a crate that he liked during the show. Now part of AEW, Punk's promos aren't scripted, and we haven't heard of any limitations that Tony Khan has laid down for the veteran wrestler just yet. Only time will tell if Punk has any more pipe bombs left in him, but given how much he's praised AEW and the response he's had so far, odds are it'll be a long time, if ever, before he ever gets frustrated enough with AEW to bury them on TV. Well guys, that's our news for today. Please share your comments below. Also hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to receive all notifications. And as always, thanks for watching.